me today on the USFL Podcast Interview Series, I have the special guest, one that has been covering the league just as closely, if not, I would say, dare I say, better than even us at times here. It is Fox Sports College Football Analyst and host of the #1 ranked show, RJ Young himself, joining us on the show. RJ, thanks for taking the time, man. I mean, I'm going to be honest, from podcaster to podcaster, we've been busy on our end. I can only imagine yourself, being officially with Fox, the timetable you have had doing entertainment and at least coverage yourself.
I've had a lot of fun doing that, but I need to say thanks so much, Zach. I appreciate the opportunity, and I've been following what you guys have been doing. It's been really outstanding work, and I'm grateful to be here.
Awesome. And I'm happy to have you on here, and really let's just talk USFL. I mean, that's just what's great. And first off, just for your sake, and just talking about, you as your course of college football analyst for Fox Sports, your show bases a lot on the college football scene and connecting into that world. For yourself, the USFL, it has a lot of the research into this. I feel like this is right in your wheelhouse here. How has it been, just like you're getting to use your college football expertise and what you already do, and now you get to put it into a professional setting, and it feels a little almost like a Wild West of at least seeing where we're going to go with this whole thing.
It's been a lot of fun. I remember getting a call from my managing editor at Fox Sports saying, "Hey, can you go down and cover the USFL draft on February 22nd, 2022? All the twos there is pretty great." And I said, "Absolutely." Right. So I'm in Birmingham the day of, going through what perhaps is new for everyone. And that was kind of the cool part about it for me, is you're at the start of something brand new, and knowing what kind of players that the USFL was recruiting and just what kind of product they plan to put on the field and what the timing is like, all of that going into basically my wheelhouse, right, which is college football. And among my friends and really at Fox, I probably get a little too deep into the weeds with college football, which is to say I knew a lot about the guys going in. I knew a lot about them going back to high school, because being in my job, I had the unique advantage and privilege to get to know some of these players when they're in 8th, 9th, 10th grade and watch them become college players that everybody gets to know, and then watch them hopefully play in the NFL. But one of the things that I'm very interested in with the USFL is it demonstrates just how much football, one, there is, and how good we are at playing it. Like, I'll give you an example. One of the guys that I was excited to see in this league is outside linebacker at Philadelphia, Jordan Moore. And that dude was outstanding. So he shows up to Texas Christian, and he wins the Big 12 indoor and outdoor titles in the 110s and the 60-meter hurdles, transfers to LSU thinking he's going to play football, finds out he can't. LSU track coach says, "Do you want to run?" He says, "Yes." Wins SEC championships, is an All-American, and I believe he's just a few tenths away from, at the time, perhaps competing for an Olympic spot in the 110 hurdles. And he ends up transferring to UTSA because he still wants to play football. And that's what we got. We got a bunch of guys that are extremely talented that just want to play football, and they want to play football at a professional level. And for many of them, this is going to be their first opportunity to do that. And I'm excited to cover that.
Well, I gotta be honest, and this is why I love these leagues. This is why I've enjoyed covering leagues like this, and I'm fully invested in this league now, is the stories of some of these players too. A lot of this, I think, gets lost when it comes to, we have that transition from college to NFL, where, we follow these players closely, but once we get to the NFL, it seems like a lot of those people kind of get lost in the shuffle. There's still the journey after college. It's not just the shield that you go to. There's other places and avenues. This is now one of them. And I'll talk on a similar story like that. The Adeoye brothers, I had a chance to talk with both of them before that show. One of them played basketball at Ball State, my alma mater, but he decided, I'm going to make a shift, change up, go through the arena scene of all things. And here he is now. So I love hearing stuff like that. It's just, I don't know, that the Olympic, just kind of that trial of being track and field, that story just brought me to that. So it's amazing to see different players, different athletes, getting that journeys, and football is a great tool for that. What are your thoughts on, your company, Fox Sports, is going to be, helping produce with NFL Films, the United by Football series itself. It's going to be a 13-part docu-series. It's going to be very in-depth. What are you wanting to see out of that yourself in terms of storytelling and, talking about players and at least seeing those journeys like you've seen through college sports?
It's an interesting question. I don't know what I expect to see. I expect to see good stories, right? I
Mhm.
expect to see these players tell their stories. One of the things that I thought was interesting is that there's not going to be any narration of those stories. You're going to hear from coaches and players almost exclusively, right? And I'm really interested to see just how they interact with this league and how they interact with the city of Birmingham, how they move around, and what practice is like, because we're in the middle of training camp right now when you and I are speaking, and
Mhm.
we've already seen some moving and shaking among the players. And how does that affect your team, especially knowing that there are only 45 players to each roster, and there are only 6 assistants to each roster. So
Right.
you got I think 9 total coaches for each one of these 8 teams with 45 players on the roster. 38 are going to be active for game days. So they're going to get to be very tight and very close. And I'm really interested to see what happens in as far as how defenses are deployed, how offenses are deployed, what players might play both ways, right? That's
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah.
And watching who I think is going to emerge as a star, right? And who actually emerges as a star. Because one of the things that's great about this series, or a series like it, is some of the players that perhaps don't light it up on the field will light it up in front of a camera. And we saw
Right.
this with series like Hard Knocks, for instance. So I'm very excited to see just what the characters look like and how these guys go about really promoting themselves in this league as well.
Mhm. I love that you're going to be able to get some social interaction. It's an extra element for the USFL to broaden its reach, and something that we haven't seen before. That, in terms of just alternative leagues, I've been wanting extra content like this. So it's nice. It's nice you're going to get the professionalism of both these two properties together to make what I'm very much anticipating for before the game. An hour special before we get into that April 16th kickoff at 7:30 Eastern time for yourself. Talking about, you mentioned it in terms of the struggles for some of the coaches. You're doing a coaches series right now for the number one ranked show. You've gotten through, as of our recording right now, you've talked to 6 of the 8. You still have Mike Riley and Todd Haley to discuss with coming up here. What's kind of some themes or things you are running into, maybe you didn't expect with talking to some of these coaches, or things that you're going to be watching out for now that you've had some discussions with, a mixture of both coaches that have been pro and some that have been just definitively college their entire career?
It's kind of interesting to find out just what their mentality is going into this venture, because like everybody, and that's what's cool about this, they're going into this brand new in some places. Even the guys that have experience in alternative leagues like Bart Andrus, still it's going to be his first year in the USFL. And then you've got perhaps the best known of the coaches in Jeff Fisher, who has never coached in a league like this. And he's excited and he's having a good time figuring out just what he's going to do with a pared down staff, with a pared down roster, with really, I think, a grassroots kind of feel to the Michigan Panthers. It's going to be fun. But that's been really what I've taken away, is just who feels sort of comfortable with this atmosphere and with these tools that you are given, as opposed to the guys that perhaps are jumping into this for the first time, guys that I'm familiar with, like Kevin Sumlin,
Sure.
who's going to coach the Gamblers, and Skip Holtz, who's going to coach the Stallions, and Larry Fedora, who's going to coach the Breakers. And then you have guys like Todd Haley, who's coming straight from coaching high school football to getting back in the USFL. And that's a
Right.
lot of fun. That interview drops on Monday. I don't know when you're planning to do this, but that's going to be our 7th of those 8th. So that should be able to put it together. He was excited. Like, he's really having a good time talking through with these players, and his staff is dynamite, man. I mean, Pepper Johnson's on that staff. That's 5 Super Bowls there. That's a dude that played next to Lawrence Taylor, right? He's got Carnell Lake on that staff, who was an AFC Defensive Player of the Year for Pittsburgh. And he's really got an outstanding roster. I mean, Jordan Tamu and Brady White, you're going to be pretty good at quarterback there, to say nothing of John Franklin III, who's a speedster, and he's got a Super Bowl ring. They're excited to see what their players are able to do under these lights when we kick off April 16th, April 17th. And that's the other part about this that's really fascinating and interesting. We got 4 games every weekend. You
Right.
know? Like, that's
Right.
awesome. I love that so much. I'm excited.
I like that. I like, for me, we Saturday and Sunday so typical. The Friday night ones, when I had first heard that they were possibly going to be coming up, I was like, okay, fascinating stuff. I was waiting for it to confirm, and sure enough, my own Panthers are going to be one of the first to hit that Friday night scene. So I like to get the whole weekend encompassed and all that. And of course, we've seen Edward Hartman pumping up Easter weekend. Is going to be quite the advertisement, kind of like the Thanksgiving games in the NFL is how I look at that. So it should be fun for these coaches though. I liked reading up and kind of doing some follow-ups on your own writings and, at least interviews with the coaches itself, especially the college ones, like Skip Holtz and Larry Fedora's, I felt were fascinating because Skip, very much in your conversation, it felt like he's already looked very giddy about this whole thing. Like I think to me, it seems like someone I think that could talk for hours upon hours about his experiences and just doing this. But what's fascinating is he's like ready for this new challenge. He's ready just to get in and on this and already being happy on the ground floor. Larry does too, of course. But what I found fascinating is he looks like he's very much, I want everything is possible on NFL expertise, on pro expertise. I'm a college guy, I'm still wanting to get this stuff figured out, but I'm going to do it and it's going to be fun. What is, you find anything else with that with terms of at least the college scene? Like that's to me is what's fascinating is the college coaches are the ones I'm looking at the closest because of that adaptation to some of the pro elements of this.
I think that in some respects, it's a little bit overblown. And I think perhaps if you're a college football coach in this league, you kind of feel that because I cover college football and I got to tell you, it's as good as any pro league, right? Sure. It's just as well powerful, I think is the term that I want to use here because I'm talking about Kevin Sumlin, for instance, who's coming from Texas A&M, Arizona, Oklahoma, Houston, and he's used to having 85 scholarship players that he handpicked, having an outstanding staff of 10 on the field assistants, support staff, having all these things in place to help him win and having some measure of control. And I think that is going to be what's interesting about the process of them going from college to pro is they're not going to be as in control, but they're going to be just as sharp. And they're probably going to have a little bit better understanding of what the offense is going to look like with this modern player. For instance, nobody's going to come out here running the 46 defense, right? But you are going to have a guy like Kirby Wilson who's going to try to run the ball, and he's going to try to stack the box because he's got a Pittsburgh Steelers background. He's a running back coach. He wants to hand his guys the rock, and he wants to control the clock. You also have this idea from like Larry Fedora where they're going to run single back, and he's a spread guy. But I found it interesting in that, he went to go get Noel Mazzone, who has extensive experience in the NFL as an offensive mind. And now he's going to come out of huddle for the first time. And Larry Fedora is like, I haven't been in a huddle since 1996, man. So I got a lot to learn on that front. But I'm excited about that because it shows to me that they're malleable, right? And they're going to adapt to what's in front of them. And that's where a guy like Skip Holtz also is going to have an edge here, right? This is a man who was an offensive coordinator at Notre Dame, wins a national championship or claimed to a national championship, but also has been a head coach at East Carolina, right? He understands just what kind of player he's going to get and what he can expect from each one of these guys at a different tier. So I'm really excited to see what those personalities look like on the sideline and how they manifest in games.
They're already getting my attention even on social. Like Scooby Wright and Skip Holtz seem like they're just going to be a pair of best friends if you were to follow them on social media right now. Media Day, it felt that way too. Which I mean, those jerseys are looking pretty snazzy. The players themselves, you've had plenty to say, and I've been fascinated in terms of your coverage on kind of going in depth with some people because again, this is your wheelhouse. This is why I'm really wanting to talk with you here because I mean. You're getting a lot of the college background. And you're diving back into, what makes these players very much capable and pick worthy for these teams. Who are, I'd say maybe I'll give you maybe two. Who are two on your radar that, you're like, I really want to see these guys get on the field ASAP. April 16th, 17th. I'm watching out for these players in these 4 games.
It's difficult to say. Right. I'm going to go to training camp in the next week and see with my own 2 eyes, just who's doing what and how. But off the top of my head, when I was going through the USFL draft and seeing who was selected, I want to see Paxton Lynch throw a football.
Okay.
And I understand Shea Patterson's the number 1 overall pick, but between the Panthers and the Bandits, I think he got the best quarterbacks rooms in this league, I would have said that they were the clear favorites there. And then with the unfortunate injury to Ben Holmes, we saw Luis Perez is the New Jersey General now, along with DeAndre Johnson. And I like both of those guys. So I'm excited to see what the quarterbacks do, in particular the guys over there with you at Michigan, the only former NFL first-round draft pick in this league. That's exciting to me. I want to see Mike Weber, right? Ohio State tailback for the New Jersey Generals. I mean, I can keep going. Brennan Eagles and Brian Scott ought to be a lot of fun at Philadelphia. I'll add here, Philadelphia, my dark horse to win this thing, because Bart Andrews knows what he's doing in this league, and he and Brian Scott are undefeated as a tandem. Like, there's a lot here, man. Like, Scott's probably the dude that I believe has the most to gain, right, from the USFL, full stop, because he hasn't really had an opportunity at an NFL level. And in my reporting, I've found that nobody knows why this kid does not have an opportunity to not just play in the NFL, but start in the NFL, right? I've been amazed at what other coaches have told me about his ability and about just what he's able to do with a football in his hands. And I really want it to work for him, getting to know him, getting to speak with him, getting to know where he's from, getting to know his background, everything that he has been through to keep this dream of playing pro football alive. It's a guy that I think a lot of people are going to pull for, and I think he's going to turn a lot of heads in this league.
Well, he was one on draft night, and this is just, I've known him from the spring league mostly as we were doing this. And, I agree. Like, I love the talent he shows. I know that there's still people, like I said, draft night, I was like, who's this dude? I'm like, well, you're going to learn here. I think with Bart Andrus, that rejoining, you're going to have that similar concept. And I get it. I'm high on him for that. Plus, Jordan Sewell, he's going to link up with his own receiver. And this is especially with this league, you had about a month to prepare. And that's a question I think some had outside this is, can they get this ready in a month? And having those connections that you draft some people like that, Brian being involved with that process, being in that room and saying, I got to get my guy back. That's something that you can't underestimate in terms of making a good product come this first weekend.
Perhaps, right? But I'm also always amazed at in these leagues who steps up and who doesn't, right? Especially as you're pulling from, I think it's 750 players over the course of the positional draft and the supplemental draft. But Brian was also that guy, like, I'm there at this day 2 for the NFL draft, or for the USFL draft, and he's the only player walking around on day 2. Everybody else had gone home. And I said, why'd you stay? Coach Bart asked me to, and I wanted to stay. And I think that says a lot about not just who he wants on the team, but also this is a guy that was saying, hey, look, that's a guy I don't want to play against. So if we can go get him, that'd be great. And I appreciated him saying things like that, going, hey, look, I played against that guy in practice as a cornerback, and I don't throw over there anymore. Now he's on my team. And I don't want to give too much away here, but you do see that sort of a chess match already coming out in the USFL. Coach Andrus and Coach Fisher are very familiar, as many folks know.
Yep.
And I'm excited to see those games. And Coach Fisher's on record going, no, I want to beat him. I want to beat him bad. But they go all the way back to Pee Wee, with Andrus being the Pee Wee quarterback for Fisher's team. They were on staff at Tennessee. They were on staff at St. Louis. They know each other. I mean, Todd Haley and Jeff Fisher goes back. There's so many different ways in which I think these coaches are going to pull from files that might be 20 years old to try to give them an edge when they go play against each other. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Anything goes. I love the conversation with Jeff Fisher for that discussion, not only learning about, the connection with him and Bart Andrus, of course, and how far back they did go. I mean, even past 1999, with Andrus being on that staff with Jeff coaching in Tennessee. But, I like the one comment where it's like, look, I even love his quarterback. Like, Brian Scott scares me, or things like that. And him just, getting that process of like, look, I'm very grateful that, like, hearing about Shea Patterson, Paxton Lynch coming available, and how that process came to be. You have people jazzed up about, hey, maybe we'll get a 2 quarterback setup, with the rule sets, because of how talented these guys are on those rosters. I think that those storylines are fascinating. One I'm looking forward to, and the conversation with Kirby Wilson made me realize that this man is extremely humble, first off, and that attitude into this and saying like, hey, these players make their own stories, but I am there to help them guide their way with that. I thought that was excellent, but I'm looking forward to that matchup when he meets up with Todd Haley, just for that Pittsburgh connection alone. I'll ask you with Wilson's conversation. Any takeaways from that still stick with you at this time?
Yeah. Kirby's become one of my favorite people in the league. I mean, I got to know him and his general manager, Chris Watt, spending most of the day on day 2 with them, just being inside the draft room. And he was really cool to let me do that. I mean, not a lot of coaches would have let you do that. And Kirby, being a first-year head coach, showed a remarkable amount of, patience with me, right? Okay. As I would ask him questions about why he chose this or why he chose that. I also enjoy that he wears that Super Bowl ring around, right, from the Pittsburgh Steelers days. He's got 2. Right. And I asked him, like, do you ever get questions, comments about why you're wearing a Super Bowl ring? And he said, look, my mother came after me because I had complained about people asking me about it at one point. And she said, it's jewelry. If you don't wear it, I'll wear it. Give it to me. And that was enough, right? So it's a man that listens to his mother, among other things, but it's also a guy that is fired up to have this opportunity because he's been an NFL coach for 22 years, 37 years as a coach. I mean, the running backs that he has helped not just put into the league, but who have done great things in the league is a stupid long list. And he's never had this opportunity, right? And it was kind of interesting in that he had this unfortunate accident at a townhouse in Pittsburgh where nearly 50% of his body's burned in a house fire. That's the same year that Todd Haley becomes the offensive coordinator, right? They know each other in that Todd's going to throw the ball around and Kirby wants to run the ball. And I don't know that there's a lot between them in as far as a rivalry, right? They're very good friends and they know each other well and they think highly of each other. I'm excited to see them match wits in that way. I did not expect that, quite honestly. I expected both of those guys to say, no, that's the guy I want to circle on my list to go beat, in the way that Jeff Fisher had done that with Bart Andrus. The one other thing I really love about Kirby is he really wants to show his players how much he values them and he likes them from the jump, right? He was calling guys up after getting them drafted, getting them fired up. Hey, I want everything coming out of your pockets. It's one of his sayings, which is to say, I'm going to steal from you. And I want all of your good stuff. Okay.
All right.
Don't want you to leave anything on the table. I'm going to take it. We're going to use it. Let's go win some football games. And he's really into betting on guys that he's coached before, like Garrett Groshek, who's tailback coming out of Wisconsin. He coached him at the Raiders, said that was his first free agent signing with the Raiders when he was there at Vegas. And I also am predisposed to liking him because I'm from Tulsa and I went to Tulsa Public Schools. And Josh Jacobs went to McLean, which is a Tulsa public school. And Josh Jacobs was his rookie tailback at Vegas. So we already had a lot in common there. And I've spoken with Josh and Josh's dad about Kirby, and there's a mutual love between the three of them. And I don't think you can overstress that. When you have a guy like Kirby Wilson, who is going to put his coordinators in position to go coach football so that he just gets to oversee it, do the clock management. It's a man that is really, really enjoying being a head coach.
He definitely seems like, I similar to, I guess in a way like Skip, very excited just to be having this opportunity. And I think, as it's been stressed not only by yourself, but others that have talked about Wilson, a long time coming, someone that's been really looking forward to this opportunity. And I think is ready to make a name for himself now as, a head coach. I liked, in terms of the draft, like, Daryl Johnston having his own comments on, I really like this roster. He might be first time for a head coach, but he really put a lot of effort into designing this. And plus, as of today, you mentioned Luis Perez, he got Madre London signed on. And look, for those listening, if you haven't followed the European League of Football or even his career with Michigan State and Tennessee, London's quite the asset that the Maulers are going to be getting. And of course, a running back. So kind of fits his wheelhouse instantly for him. That's got to be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing that addition. Anything else that stood out to you, at least first day of transactions, while we're on that subject? I know that's kind of as of today, but I know you had a few comments on that and pieces for that today, just because, Ben Holmes was a surprise first off, but everything
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
There was one other one that I had written down. Let me consult my notes here because I was going, oh, okay, that man's in the league. But to Madre London, I remember him in Michigan State, right? That was when he first made himself known to the rest of us. But I think it's Rashard Davis.
Yes.
Who was yes. An FCS 2-time All-American wide receiver out of James Madison. I think I got that right. But no, I'm excited about that. I want to see that dude play football. And I think he is going to be, is it a Bandit? Let me make sure I got this right.
I'm that sounds right, but I'm same with you. I also need to.
Yeah, Bandits wide receiver Rashard Davis.
All right, good.
And then, of course, the other one was Philadelphia Stars Pro Wells, tight end coming out of Texas Christian. I remember Pro Wells at the Big 12, and I'm an Oklahoma fan, so I'm very familiar with Texas Christian and their players. That's also going to be, I think, an outstanding tight end in this league. I mean, he's big, he's strong. I want to say he's 6'5", 265 in college, right? So if you're looking for an Antonio Gates type of figure, he can do that for you. And really understanding what kind of offense that Todd Haley likes to run, I want to see Rashard Davis on one side, and I want to see John Franklin III on the other, and I want to see Jordan Ta'amu or Brady White throwing bombs, right? I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
I'll tell you one thing is you're bringing up, Todd Haley with, notoriously the RPO setups here. I love Ta'amu when he got picked up. There's like perfect. That's right up his alley. Excellent choice. And you're talking fun plays like that. I'm telling you right now, if you want to see Paxton Lynch throw, I hope to God Jeff Fisher does a 2 QB setup and uses that double forward pass to its advantage, because that screams it. That QB room, as long as it's healthy, I hope that he gets creative with that. And I think he will, but there's a lot of opportunities is all I could tell you. RJ, thanks for joining me today. And thank you for taking your time for the conversation here. Before we go, please plug yourself. Feel free to do so. You obviously you have your writings. You've been doing, of course, the #1 ranked show. You have all that out there. Where can we all find you at?
Foxsports.com and on the Fox Sports app. They actually have this really cool feature where if you search my name, it pops up, and anything that I create content-wise will be there. RJ_Young on Twitter. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, but most of the time I'm just kind of scrolling on Twitter. And I have a couple of features that I'm very excited about that I think we're going to get to perhaps in the first 3 weeks of the season. But outside of that, man, I'm having a good time. Like, this is normally an off season for me. So this is new for me too. And I'm getting to learn more about this league every day and have conversations with players and coaches every day about what life is like and what they are learning. And again, I can't stress this enough. Them all being in Birmingham is awesome. And I believe, at least at the start, they were all at the same hotel. Yeah. So that's even more awesome because they got to see each other. It's great. I'm having a good time.
I know. I'm imagine the rivalries coming back here. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be fun just keeping all those like, look, we gotta be professional in the hotel, but on that field, we'll decide all that other stuff later on. Our Fox College Sports Analyst RJ Young, thank you for joining me today. I'm looking forward to your future, of course, USFL Coaches Series, more write-ups from yourself, and for whatever lies ahead for the USFL.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate you.